Why do so many older adults believe that 65 is the final chapter of life, when the human body may still have the potential to carry us well into our 90s, 100 seconds, and even beyond? At 65, your body has certainly changed. You may not recover as quickly as you did at 30. You may notice less strength, more stiffness, or that you need more time to feel fully awake in the morning. But change is not the same as surrender. Your heart is still working every minute to deliver blood throughout your body. Your brain can still adapt, learn, and form new connections. And perhaps most importantly, your muscles can still respond to movement and nutrition. People in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s can improve strength, balance, and physical function when they give their bodies the right support. Large studies involving tens of thousands of older adults, including research associated with Harvard researchers, have found strong links between healthy lifestyle patterns and living longer in better health. And there is one part of the day where those choices are especially easy to control: your morning. The first hour after you wake up is when you transition from hours of sleep into movement, eating, thinking, and activity. What you do during this period can influence your hydration, energy, muscles, alertness, stress response, and even how well your internal clock stays synchronized. That's why we're going to look at 6 simple morning habits that can help support healthier aging after 65. None requires an expensive supplement. None requires you to completely change your life. And pay particular attention when we reach habit number 2. It involves an activity so simple that many people overlook it, yet it is connected to important processes involved in maintaining and repairing the aging body. I truly hope you'll be here, healthy and strong, 30 years from now. So please stay until the end and discover what these habits are. Before we get started, tell me something in the comments. How old are you and where are you watching from today? It's always wonderful to see how far this community reaches. Now let's begin with habit number 5. Drink about 16 ounces of water after waking. While you sleep, you may go 7 or 8 hours without drinking anything, but your body doesn't stop losing water during that time. With every breath, a small amount of moisture leaves your body, and you also lose fluid through your skin, even when you don't notice yourself sweating. So, when morning arrives, you are not starting the day in exactly the same condition you were in the night before. You may already be mildly dehydrated. For younger people, this can be easy to overlook. After 65, however, it deserves more attention because the sensation of thirst can become less noticeable with age. In other words, your body may need water before your brain gives you a strong signal to drink. This is one reason some older adults wake up feeling unusually tired, sluggish, lightheaded, or simply not quite themselves. When the body is short on fluid, blood volume can decrease, which may make the cardiovascular system work harder to maintain normal circulation. And because the brain depends on a steady supply of blood and oxygen, dehydration can also contribute to headaches, difficulty concentrating, weakness, or dizziness in some people. After waking, try drinking about 16 ounces of water, roughly 2 cups, before beginning the rest of your morning. It doesn't need to be ice cold. Room temperature water is comfortable for many older adults and may be easier to drink first thing in the morning. Plain water is perfectly fine. If you enjoy the taste, you can add a small squeeze of lemon, but there is no need to turn this into a complicated health drink. Consider Helen, a 72-year-old retiree who had developed a familiar morning routine. She would get out of bed, make coffee, eat a small breakfast, and sometimes go several hours before drinking her first glass of water. She often noticed that she felt slightly unsteady when she first started moving around the house. She assumed it was simply another part of getting older. After discussing the problem with her healthcare provider and ruling out other causes, Helen made one small change. She began keeping water ready in her kitchen each evening. The next morning, before making coffee, she drank it slowly and then continued with her normal routine. Dizziness can have many causes, and persistent or sudden dizziness should always be discussed with a healthcare professional. But for Helen, paying more attention to hydration became one useful part of her mornings, and she gradually noticed that she generally felt more alert and ready to move. You can make this habit easier by drinking your water shortly after waking and, if it suits your routine, giving yourself around 30 minutes before breakfast. You don't need to drink it all at once. Take your time and drink at a comfortable pace. Most importantly, don't make thirst your only reminder. As we grow older, our sense of thirst may become less reliable. By creating a regular morning hydration habit, you don't have to wait for your body to send a strong signal before responding. But hydration is only the beginning. Once you've given your body the fluid it needs, there is something else waiting just outside your window that can send an important message to your brain. The day has begun. Habit number 4. Get about 10 minutes of natural morning light. Once you've given your body some water, the next thing it needs isn't another drink, a supplement, or even breakfast. It needs a clear signal that morning has arrived, and one of the strongest signals comes from something completely free: natural daylight. When morning light reaches your eyes, specialized light-sensitive cells in the retina detect it. These cells aren't only involved in vision, they also communicate with an area of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which acts as the body's master biological clock. Think about what happens when that clock receives a clear morning signal. Your brain begins adjusting melatonin, the hormone associated with nighttime and sleep. At the same time, your normal morning rise in cortisol helps promote alertness and prepares you for activity. Light exposure also interacts with systems involved in serotonin, which plays an important role in mood. Together, these processes help organize your circadian rhythm, the internal 24-hour cycle that influences when you feel awake, when you become tired, and when your body prepares for sleep again. Some older adults spend much of the morning indoors. They wake up in a dim bedroom, eat breakfast under artificial lights, then sit in front of a television or phone. By noon, they may have received very little bright natural light. Then something frustrating happens. They feel sleepy during the afternoon, yet when bedtime arrives, they aren't ready to sleep. Consider 74-year-old Daniel. For months, Daniel complained that around 3 in the afternoon he could barely keep his eyes open. He frequently took long naps, then found himself lying awake late at night. He assumed his energy was disappearing simply because he was getting older, but there was another detail in his routine. Daniel rarely went outside before lunch, so he made a small change. After drinking his morning water, he began stepping onto his porch for about 10 minutes. Some mornings he walked slowly around the garden. Other mornings he simply sat outside and enjoyed the quiet. He wasn't exercising intensely. He wasn't staring directly at the sun, and you shouldn't do that either. He was simply allowing normal outdoor daylight to reach his eyes. Over time, his mornings began to feel more alert. His afternoon sleepiness became easier to manage, and his nighttime routine became more consistent. The important point isn't that sunlight is a cure for fatigue. Persistent tiredness can have many causes and deserves medical attention when it is new or severe. The lesson is that morning light is one of the environmental cues your brain uses to know what time it is. Research on circadian biology also connects healthy sleep-wake rhythms with broader metabolic, hormonal, and cellular processes. Scientists continue to study how light, sleep, circadian disruption, and markers of cellular aging, such as telomeres, may be related. But you don't need to make dramatic anti-aging claims to appreciate the practical benefit. A well-timed biological clock can support better sleep, daytime alertness, and mood. If possible, go outside for about 10 minutes relatively soon after waking. On an overcast morning, outdoor light can still be useful because daylight is generally much brighter than ordinary indoor lighting. If going outside isn't practical, sit near an window or doorway where you can receive natural daylight. Just remember that turning on a lamp or looking at your phone is not the same experience as stepping into the natural morning environment. So, now your morning has 2 simple foundations. First, give your body the water it has been missing overnight. Then, give your brain the light that tells it a new day has begun. But after 65, there is something else you need to protect deliberately. Because losing too much of it can affect how easily you walk, climb stairs, get out of a chair, and remain independent. And that brings us to habit number 3. Eat about 30 grams of protein within 90 minutes of waking. For many people over 65, losing muscle doesn't happen dramatically. It happens quietly. At first, you may notice that getting out of a low chair takes a little more effort. Carrying groceries feels heavier. Stairs require you to hold the railing. A walk that once felt easy leaves your legs tired sooner than expected. These changes are often dismissed as "I'm just getting older." As we grow older, maintaining muscle becomes more difficult, especially when we aren't physically active or don't eat enough protein. This age-related decline in muscle mass and strength is often associated with sarcopenia. This is why breakfast deserves another look. Many older adults begin their day with something light, perhaps toast, cereal, fruit, or a cup of coffee. There's nothing inherently wrong with those foods, but a breakfast containing very little protein may be a missed opportunity to support your muscles. When you eat protein, your digestive system breaks it down into amino acids. Your body then uses those amino acids for many jobs, including maintaining and repairing muscle tissue. This process is closely connected with muscle protein synthesis. Essentially, the body's ongoing process of building new muscle proteins. And because older muscles can become less responsive to smaller amounts of protein, getting a meaningful serving at each meal becomes increasingly important. A practical target for many older adults is around 25 to 30 grams of protein at breakfast. Although individual needs vary depending on body size, health conditions, activity level, and medical advice. You might get there with eggs combined with Greek yogurt. Another person may prefer Greek yogurt with other protein-rich foods. Some may choose lean meat, while others may use suitable plant-based combinations. The goal isn't to find one magical breakfast. It's to make protein a deliberate part of the meal rather than an afterthought. Consider 70-year-old Patricia. She had always considered her breakfast healthy: tea, 2 pieces of toast, and a little fruit. But over the years, she noticed that her legs were becoming weaker. Gardening became more tiring, and standing up after working near the flower beds required more effort than it once had. After discussing her nutrition and activity with her healthcare provider, Patricia began changing the composition of her breakfast. She added more protein and, importantly, started doing a little strength work instead of relying only on walking. She didn't wake up suddenly feeling 20 years younger. What she noticed was more practical. Everyday movements gradually felt easier. There's also a simple way to make this habit even more useful. After breakfast, or at another safe time in your morning, give those muscles a reason to work. For example, if you can do so safely, sit in a sturdy chair and stand up, then slowly sit back down. Repeat the movement several times, gradually working toward around 10 repetitions. That simple action uses the muscles in your thighs, hips, and lower body. The same muscles you depend on for getting out of bed, using stairs, walking, and catching yourself when you lose balance. Protein provides building material. Resistance provides the signal that tells your muscles they are still needed. Together, nutrition and regular strength activity can support muscle maintenance far more effectively than simply hoping weakness won't happen. If you have kidney disease, dietary restrictions, difficulty swallowing, or another medical condition affecting protein intake, talk with your healthcare professional before making a major change to your diet. Habit number 2, practice 60 seconds of single leg balance. You can have strong muscles and still lose your balance. That's because staying upright is not a job performed by your legs alone. Every time you stand, turn around, step off a curb, or walk across an uneven surface, several systems inside your body are quietly working together to keep you stable. And after 65, keeping those systems trained becomes increasingly important. Your eyes tell your brain where you are in relation to the world around you. Your inner ear detects changes in the position and movement of your head. And a third system, called proprioception, helps your brain sense where your feet, ankles, knees, and the rest of your body are positioned without having to look at them. When these three systems communicate efficiently, you make countless tiny corrections without even noticing. Your ankle shifts slightly, your hip adjusts, your foot changes pressure against the floor, your brain processes the information, and your muscles respond. All of this can happen in a fraction of a second, but balance is also an ability that benefits from practice. As we age, changes in vision, sensation, muscle strength, reaction time, medications, or inner ear function can make maintaining balance more difficult. This is one reason falls become such an important concern later in life. And a fall doesn't only mean an injury. For some older adults, even the fear of falling changes the way they live. They stop walking as far, they avoid stairs, they decline invitations that require leaving home. They move less, become weaker, and gradually lose confidence. That's why habit number 2 takes only about 1 minute. Stand beside a sturdy chair, kitchen counter, or wall, somewhere you can immediately reach for support. Do not begin in the middle of an open room. Place both feet firmly on the floor. When you feel stable, gently lift one foot just slightly off the ground. You don't need to raise your knee high. Try holding the position for about 10 seconds. Then put your foot down, regain your stability, and repeat with the other leg. If 10 seconds feels difficult, start with 3 or 5. There is no prize for forcing yourself to continue when you feel unstable. The goal is to challenge your balance safely, not to prove how long you can stand on one leg. Take Michael, 76, for example. He was still active and walked almost every day. But he had begun noticing something strange. Whenever he turned quickly in the kitchen or stepped from the sidewalk onto the grass, he sometimes needed an extra step to steady himself. He wasn't falling, but he no longer trusted his balance the way he once had. Instead of waiting for the problem to become more limiting, Michael began practicing near his kitchen counter each morning. At first, he kept one hand hovering just above the surface. After several weeks, he noticed that standing on one leg felt less uncertain, and everyday movements began to feel more controlled. This simple exercise also asks the small stabilizing muscles around your ankles, knees, and hips to respond continuously. At the same time, your brain is receiving information from your eyes, inner ear, and joints, and coordinating the corrections needed to keep you upright. In other words, you're not simply training a leg, you're practicing communication between your brain and your body. Once basic single leg standing becomes comfortable, some people can progress to slightly more challenging variations, such as slowly turning the head from side to side while holding on to support as needed. That changes the visual and vestibular information reaching the brain and makes the balance system work differently. If you already have significant balance problems, frequent dizziness, recent falls, weakness, vision problems, or a condition affecting your walking, practice only with appropriate support and ask a healthcare professional or physical therapist what is safe for you. The objective is not to stand on one leg like an athlete. The objective is much more meaningful. It's being able to turn around without feeling uncertain. It's stepping over something on the floor without panicking. It's walking through your garden, going shopping, visiting friends, and moving through your own home with greater confidence. And now we've reached the habit number 1. Practice the 4-7-8 breathing technique. There is an important difference between simply breathing and deliberately slowing your breathing to influence how your nervous system responds. Think about how many mornings begin. The alarm goes off. You remember something you need to do. You reach for your phone. Maybe there's an unpleasant message, a worrying headline, or simply a long list of responsibilities waiting for you. Before your feet even touch the floor, your mind may already be racing. Your body responds to that mental state. One part of the nervous system, known as the sympathetic nervous system, helps prepare us for action when we perceive stress or danger. Heart rate may rise, muscles become more alert, and stress hormones such as cortisol participate in preparing the body to respond. This system is essential. We need it. The problem is spending too much of our day feeling as though something urgent is always about to happen. Your body also has another side of this system, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is associated with rest, digestion, recovery, and a calmer physiological state. And breathing is one of the few functions that happens automatically but can also be deliberately controlled. The technique is called 4-7-8 breathing. Sit comfortably before beginning. Relax your shoulders. Breathe in gently through your nose for a count of 4. Hold, snorts, the breath for a count of 7. Then slowly breathe out for a count of 8. That is 1 round, and you need toward 10 rounds. But if you're new to breath holding exercises, you don't need to force yourself to complete that many. Start slowly and stop if you feel dizzy, uncomfortable, or short of breath. Why can slower breathing feel so calming? Part of the explanation involves the vagus nerve, an important communication pathway associated with parasympathetic activity. Slow, controlled breathing, particularly a longer, comfortable exhalation, can influence autonomic regulation and may help the body shift away from a highly activated state. Breathing patterns can also affect heart rate variability, or HRV, which describes the natural variation in timing between heartbeats. HRV is influenced by many factors, but it provides one window into how the autonomic nervous system is regulating the heart. Then there is nitric oxide, a molecule involved in blood vessel function and circulation. Nasal breathing interacts with nitric oxide produced in the nasal passages. Although this does not mean one breathing technique can reverse cardiovascular disease. And what about the lungs? Your lungs are constantly exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide. Slow breathing encourages you to pay attention to that process and use a more controlled breathing pattern instead of the short, hurried breaths that often accompany stress. Now consider Evelyn, 71. Her mornings had become stressful after her husband developed mobility problems. The moment she woke up, she started thinking about medications, appointments, breakfast, household chores, and everything that might go wrong that day. She described it as feeling rushed before she had even stood up. Her doctor was already monitoring her blood pressure, so she knew breathing exercises were not a replacement for medication or medical care. But she wanted a calmer way to begin the morning. She started sitting quietly at the edge of her bed and practicing slow breathing before reaching for her phone. But after making it part of her routine, Evelyn noticed something important. She was beginning her mornings less hurried. Instead of allowing the first thought of the day to decide her emotional state, she gave herself a few quiet minutes before responding to everything around her. That may sound small, but healthy aging is often built from small things repeated consistently. Growing older doesn't mean giving up control of your health. And turning 65 doesn't mean your strongest, most independent years must be behind you. What matters is what you continue to do with the years ahead. The habits we've discussed today are not miracle treatments, and none of them can guarantee that you will live another 30 years. But each one supports something that becomes increasingly important as we age. Drink water in the morning to begin the day properly hydrated. Get natural morning light to help your body recognize when the day begins and support a healthier sleep-wake rhythm. Include enough protein in your breakfast to give your muscles the nutrients they need. Practice your balance so your brain and body continue learning how to work together. And take a few minutes to breathe slowly, allowing yourself to begin the day with calm instead of immediately filling your mind with stress. You don't have to start all of these tomorrow. Choose one, practice it until it becomes familiar. Then add another. Over time, these small decisions can become a morning routine you no longer have to think about. Because healthy aging isn't about desperately trying to become young again. It's about protecting what allows you to enjoy the age you are now. Maybe you're 65 today. Imagine yourself at 75, then 85, perhaps even 95 or 100. The person you become at those ages will be influenced in part by the choices you make long before you get there. So, tomorrow morning, don't think about changing the next 30 years all at once. Just change the first hour. Drink your water, step into the morning light, nourish your muscles, practice your balance, take a slow breath. And if you're still watching, tell me in the comments, which of these morning habits will you start tomorrow? Your age may continue moving forward, but that doesn't mean you have to stop moving forward with it. Take care of yourself, stay consistent, and I'll see you in the next video.